Everybody, this is Tanya, your health coach from Embody Well, and this is my cousin Malka.
Hi.
And this is the debut show of the Dancing Vegetablearian, and you'll learn a little bit more about what that means in a second. But I thought the best way to introduce this show is to do all of the things that I love, including spending time with one of my favorite family members. These shows are going to be around cooking vegetables because it's something that people always ask me when I go to talk about nutrition and about eating well. When I talk about eating more vegetables, people are always asking, well, how? So I wanted to have a show focused around making vegetables. So every month we'll have a show, and this month the focus is going to be on greens, leafy greens. And do you know why leafy greens are important, Malka? I guess that's a no.
Well, I know they're beneficial to you. I know you have different vitamins and nutrients in greens, but tell me.
Okay, so you are right. They are very nutrient dense. So that means that you get a lot of bang for your buck. And when I say bang for your buck, especially if you're watching your weight, you get much more nutrients in 1 calorie than you will in some other foods. And leafy greens in particular are very, very packed with nutrients. In fact, kale a lot of people tout it as a superfood because of the amount of nutrients that it has. I always say variety is the spice of life, so you should get as many different foods as you can. The one thing that's particularly interesting for Black folks as it relates to leafy greens is that there is actually, there have been studies done, and there's a particular organization that I work with called Old Ways, and they actually have something called an African Heritage Pyramid. And their African Heritage Pyramid shows that at the base, we should be eating leafy greens most of the time. So that's what we should be eating most of in our diets. And that's because we, sort of, whether you consider it genetically or biologically, that's what we have been used to eating traditionally, and that's when we've been in our best health. So, for Black folks in particular, greens, known as a soul food, we're going to talk a little bit about how to make it a little different than I think you've had. And I'm going to have a secret ingredient that I don't think many people do. Although it came from our aunts, so I can't take total credit. First thing I'm going to tell you, before we actually start cleaning the greens, is that I always use onion and garlic in my greens.
Do you use a purple onion?
I love red onion.
I do too.
And so you can use, I prefer sweet, I know. The color is purple. However, when you buy it at the supermarket,
it says red onion.
It is going to be called red onion. So good, I'm glad. We both love red onion. And that is my favorite with greens. Thank you for asking that question. I have used sweet onion when I didn't have any available. I'm not particular to white onion. I think it has a little too much pungency. I actually prefer a sweeter green. But again, you got to make it to your taste. Garlic, I put garlic in almost everything.
Everything.
Garlic is, for those of you who don't know, a great antioxidant. For those of you who are afraid of breath, I can understand, but in your moments, especially when you're just treating yourself and you're by yourself or with someone else who's going to eat garlic, I think it's okay to do it. So one of the things about onion and garlic is that they actually begin to release some of their really key nutrients once they're cut. And so what the ideal amount of time that you should cut your onion and garlic before you actually start to cook them is about 5 minutes. Okay. So I encourage you to cut the onion and garlic first, and then go ahead and clean your greens, and then you can start cooking. So that way the onion and garlic have an opportunity to really open up, and all of those nutrients come to the front. So I'm going to cut the greens. Oh, sorry. The onion and garlic. Yes, that's the. So I've seen so many people. I'm not the best and most skilled cutter, knifer, whatever you want to call it. But this is my technique that I've learned from some cooking books. So I've never learned from anyone in person. So if anybody has any ideas that they want to send in, please let me know. So take off all of the stuff that you know you're not going to eat, that little crunchy stuff. And I cut it, but I leave the little root on there. And because I do love onion, I don't mind that it's not chopped. So I just slice it. Just straight from here. And what happens is this little thing kind of keeps it together. And if you want to, you can use it to kind of anchor, but that's probably after you get down a little further. And I don't mind, you know, some people wanted a certain thickness, etc. That's not a big deal to me. So, you know, once you get it down, and you know, I don't like wasting anything. So I try to make sure I get it all the way down. Okay? And then we're going to compost it because we don't waste anything. So with our garlic, I just cut off the edges, get, again, that sort of papery side off. And then I give it a little top of the knife chop. And all of the little papery stuff comes off a little more easily.
I should learn the name of that papery stuff.
That's not really that important. It's skin. It's pretty much skin.
Stem.
Yes. It's not stem. It's definitely
Skin.
Yes.
We'll go with skin.
It's like onion skin. Yes. So thank you. We have an audience, so that's where we're getting some of our background tips. So once we have that, we are going to let it sit for how long, Malcolm?
5 minutes.
Yes. And
I
in
was
that
paying attention.
and in that 5 minutes, what can we be doing?
We could be finishing with our greens.
Oh, that sounds like an excellent idea.
Oh.
This is what's great about working with family. You have that sort of connection that really... Okay, so first let's start with the greens that we're going to make. So first, we're going to actually do a mixture of greens. So the first we're going to use our...
What green is that, Tanya?
No, what green is that?
What green is this, Tanya? Is this a collard?
You are correct. This is a collard green. So there are the collard greens that we have here. And one thing I'll tell you is that look at the color of the green. If it starts to lose its green as something called a green, that means you probably shouldn't get it. So if you have a good, healthy green color, that's great. If it's starting to yellow a little bit, you probably should, you know, if you get 1 or 2 like this, it's fine. But look for those healthy greens. Okay, so we've got collard greens.
Collard greens.
We have
Kale.
This is kale. This is a nice, lovely, curly kale. So we've got some curly kale. I'm going to have 2 of those. And then we have another green.
Is this a mustard green?
This is not a mustard green.
What green is that?
Anybody? Anybody? This is actually another kale. This
Really?
is called lacinato kale. Yes. And it is absolutely delicious. And I like to blend my kales, and they all have different textures. So you really should find a texture that you like. When people say, I don't like greens, I always kind of question that because I can't believe there are so many different varieties. It's really hard to believe that you just hate them all.
Well, learn something new.
Okay.
A different kind of kale.
Guess what this
What
is?
is that? Is that arugula? What is it?
It is a red Russian kale.
A red Russian kale. I have a lot
So
of kale today.
So I'm a big fan of kale. So that's why we've got all 3. So you can see I also brought just another red Russian kale just to show you again what starts to happen both in the grocery store and in your refrigerator. So you want to kind of make them before they lose their green.
Now that we have our onions and garlic releasing all of their wonderful nutrients,
It smells really
which
good
you
in
can
here.
smell,
Yeah,
yes.
it's really good.
We're going to clean our greens. So cleaning greens, there's a spectrum of it, but the major gist is that you want to get, of course, the grit and dirt out of them. But, you know, a lot of people, especially the top thick part of the stalk, don't typically cook that just because it takes really a long time to cook and soften. So it really varies. Some people just cut it down to wherever the leaves end and eat the stalk. You might see that when it's bagged, but I am not a big stalk fan. I just like the leaves. So what I do is the green clean move.
What is the green clean move?
Let me show you. So you're just gonna take the leaves with the large stem side up and you're gonna pull
Oh.
and pull and pull and pull. Because this show is called Grub and what? Grub. All right. So I'm going to give you a nice, thick, stalky collard
I love it.
to get your green clean on.
Flip it in.
Just flip it up. Thank you. Top where the thick part of the stalk is.
And
Get it
if I
started.
this move right. And pull. And pull.
And green clean. And green clean. And then you just do the other side. Same thing. All the way down that green.
I like this move.
All right. Well, I do too. So next time you're at the club, so just make sure you pull out your green clean move. Nobody won't know.
So we are going to now clean those greens that we have. Right. Okay,
I got excited.
all right, so there's different ways to clean greens. I just kind of rub them together. If you want to, you can add some white vinegar. I have got organic greens, so there isn't as much. I know a lot of people have questions about organic greens, but there certainly isn't as much pesticide as in your traditional green. If you do buy a traditional green, you may want to put a little more white vinegar if you're concerned about that, because it will not only clean it, but it will also flavor it a little bit. And this is where I rip them up. I'm actually fine with a little hand rip. Some people like to take them, roll them, and actually chop them so they're really neat. So if you have that OCD need to have some neat greens, then, you know, do your thing. You know, you got to do what makes you feel good and what makes you enjoy your food. That's the most important part. So again, I just rip them up kind of casually, have them in the sink here or a colander, whatever works for you. Rub them together. Feel free to put your hands on it. Jump on in there.
Well, you know my grandmother, Bertha,
My aunt.
her aunt, she does the vinegar.
Okay.
She does the vinegar, and she definitely does the OCD chop.
So everybody's got their style, but those are things that I think are fine regardless of how healthy or not you're trying to make them. Okay, so
Are we done?
we're done. I'm not concerned about small pieces. So the next thing we're gonna do is I actually make a base for my greens, and this is how you can tell whether or not they taste good, because you can actually start by tasting what seasoning you're gonna use on them. So what I do is start with a little medium-high heat, and I cook my greens in olive oil. A lot of people use other fats. It's your choice if you want to use. Some people use bacon fat, etc. Again, depends on how healthy you're trying to go. One of the healthier fats for you is olive oil. I do like a little butter though. So if you're not vegan, vegetarian, I'm vegetablearian, so I eat everything, but vegetables in particular. I use what has been called better butter. So it's a combination of butter and olive oil. So I kind of do half and half. I don't make it, exact, but I use a little bit of butter, and then I pour a little bit of olive oil. And I say a little bit, but I actually, typically with this 8-quart pot, I will cover the bottom. So it's not a shy amount, because I do not add water to my greens.
Oh, I didn't know that.
See, I knew you'd learn something today. All right, so that's our olive oil. So we're gonna let that get a little bit hot. So our better butter even. So I put a little bit of butter, a little bit of olive oil. So again, make it to your seasoning, but just try to add at least a little bit of olive oil, because that will increase the healthy fats for you. So basically what I do is I then saute my onions until they're slightly soft. So I would say 3 to 5 minutes typically. And then I add my garlic, because onions take a little while to get soft. And I actually really love the flavor of onions when they're, nice and sauteed. So it really allows the flavor of the onions to come out. So I might try a little onion piece. And if it doesn't sizzle, thank you. We always want a little sizzle. Ooh, that might be another dance. So we've got complete onion sizzle. So we're going to go ahead and add the garlic.
Oh, that's gonna smell delicious.
So if you like the smell of onion and garlic, right now this kitchen is smelling pretty damn good. So we've got that going. This is my personal sort of set of ingredients. So I actually use 2 different vinegars. And a lot of people like the vinegar taste of greens. I'm actually particular to a sweeter vinegar taste. So I use a little apple cider vinegar and a little pomegranate vinegar. No comments from the foot. So, and I go ahead and throw it in there. So a little apple cider, it should dim the sizzle a little bit, but you never want to totally dim your sizzle.
Oh, pomegranate vinegar.
Pomegranate is lovely, I have to tell you. When I discovered it, I was very excited. So then the other thing that I add is because I like spicy. If I have fresh jalapeños, I will put those in. But if I don't, I have my favorite sriracha, Sky Valley sriracha. Shout out to Sky Valley. And I just throw kind of a lot. This is the taste in there. Okay? So now your sizzle may go down, but you want to bring that back up because you want all the flavors to melt together. If you want to, if you're really crazy about garlic and you just didn't cut enough, there's always backup garlic powder. Don't do garlic salt because you don't want to add salt where you don't need to. And then sometimes I'll add lemon. I actually have some lemon peel here. Sometimes I'll add lemon or lemon zest. So I'll put a little bit of lemon peel in there. And then this is my secret ingredient. It's ginger.
Ginger.
So a lot of people are, they think ginger is one of those spices that is used for a lot of sweet things, or I know people who eat Indian dishes, etc. But this was actually, I love Ethiopian food, and this is something they use in Ethiopian greens. And so I actually pour it in pretty liberally, a little shake to kind of cover the top there.
You hear that sizzle back?
There's still some sizzle. You gotta always have a little sizzle. So, now, once you've done this, and if you're doing it without measuring into taste, what I do is I just take a teaspoon, or since I'm eating this, or people who know me really well will eat this, I just go ahead and take a taste of it.
Don't burn yourself. Thank you.
Just to make sure it actually tastes the way I want my greens to taste. And so that's the way you can make sure you've added enough. If it's not hot enough, you add more spice. If it's not vinegary enough, you add more vinegar. If it's too vinegary, some people will use sugar or baking soda to take off the vinegar edge. If it's not gingery enough for me, then I will add that. So that's really the way in which you get the taste that you want. Once you have that taste, and it is smelling good,
And looking good.
guess what you start doing?
Adding your bunches of greens.
Taking those beautiful, beautiful greens and adding them. So the suggestion is if you have more greens than your pot can hold, then basically, okay, you fill it up, and then I put a top on it and let it cook down, because it will cook down. For those of you who've made spinach or other, they will cook down a lot. So you think, oh my gosh, I have all these greens. We just did 5 bunches. And then it'll cook down to about this much in your pot. You have all your greens. You want to cook them down a little bit at a higher temperature. So stay at medium high and go ahead and let them cook down. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, well, how long do I cook them? Well, again, the ideal is that you don't cook them very long. But I know some people are used to and actually tolerate better softer greens. So the longer you cook them, the more they'll soften and the less green they'll be. So ideally you have more green. So I'm going to leave it up to you, your taste buds, what you like in terms of texture, as to how long you cook them. I suggest that if you cook them and you're used to really hard cooked greens, that you cook them for 30 minutes and then you taste them. And if they're still too crunchy, then you could cook them a little longer. Maybe you check it every 10 minutes after that, because you really do want to figure out the minimum amount you can cook them that you like them. And then for me, because I usually cook so many greens at one time, I'm always going to cook them again. So I kind of give myself a little bit of, because I actually don't microwave. So, I usually put them in the pan again. And so they get a little more cooking every time I have a serving. So that's it. Are there any other questions you have? Will you be able to make our aunt's greens now?
I will be able to
My
make
aunt, your grandmama.
my grandmama, your aunt, but with the Tanya twist. I like that.
What's the Tanya twist? The sizzle?
the sizzle. And the roux was a little different. You made your own collard green roux.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay.
Collard green roux.
Well, it's not collard green.
Well, you
It's
made
like
your own
green
green
roux.
roux. I like it.
So that's it. If you guys have any questions, please send them to me down in the comments. And otherwise, you can always reach me at Embody Well. And have a great day and enjoy your greens.
Namaste.